Then I would suggest that we start, and for the welcome, I hand over to Professor Dr. Christian Arnold, who represents the HWTK here and gives you some warm words of welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christian Arnold. I'm a professor for business administration with a focus on innovation management, and I'd like to welcome all Task 4 members and project partners to our first Task 4 training on today on co-creation. And we are really looking forward to interactive and co-creative, if you want to, training with you. My colleague Andreas Fiedler, who made the introduction today, will guide you through the morning, and I'll be available as, let's say, thematic expert. And we are really looking forward to creative solutions, good ideas, and also having a bit fun together.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Again, like here on the slide, there's a little mistake. I have to, Doreen, I'm Andreas, so not Martin, so we mixed up the words. Yes, I will be your moderator today. We have a few people in our team that will guide you through the seminar. People joined in the Genova meeting know me personally, so I work for a research institute in Germany. We are external experts to the HWTK, and I hope to keep the time. That's the most important, and to keep or to motivate you to discuss during the seminar and to have a nice experience, and that we have all together. First of all, then welcome to Berlin. Yes, that's what it would have been looked like in April. Everybody coming to Berlin to have a nice meeting, 3 days, 4 days, in a nice environment with all the culture and framework that is available in Berlin. Unfortunately, the Corona pandemic made it impossible for us to meet, and we had to change our plans. That's why we ended up here a little bit later in a different framework and in the digital work. So welcome to the digital reality. This is not my family, but it looked nearly the same at home, working with my kids, and everybody very much concentrated and able to work. I think everybody was more or less in the same situation, and that's why we want to have a seminar where we will get input from several presentations, but we also want to make it a little bit interactive. And that's why my first question is to you. Where are you now? We will make a short question via Zoom. So if you could please answer, if you are in your office or if you are in home office, are you surrounded by your children? Maybe you have the chance to be outside in the garden, on the terrace. Are you in your kitchen or even in a cellar, or I don't know where you are? Please, you can give your answer, and the answers will be collected. And if we have a lot of results, then we can show the results. Doreen, how is it going? Are the people answering to the questionnaire? Switch on your micro.
35 people gave an answer.
Yes.
I don't know what the others are, but we give them a second. While answering, there was the idea of taking a picture. Maybe we can take a picture after
my presentation, before we start. Yes. Okay. Good. So, Doreen, what is the result? It's like a Eurovision Song Contest now, yeah? Show the results. Okay, so we are here. 38% are in the office, so it's almost balanced with the people in home office. There are quite a few people which have children at home, and I was sure there was somebody sitting outside, somebody in the kitchen. Yes, so I hope everybody has a good environment and is able to listen. We plan to host the meeting until 1 o'clock, so that would be Nice. Okay, so this is the overview of the agenda. We have the welcome introduction now. Then we will have Christian giving some insight into co-creation. And then we have basically two larger sessions where we will speak about the value proposition model and the business model canvas. Some of you might remember that we were also speaking about the World Cafe. Yesterday we held a meeting and we realized it's not enough time to speak about these two methods. That's why we decided to change a little bit the system, but we will later in the next seminar also go back to the World Cafe. We will have a break in between, and then in the end we come up with a summary and conclusion. What are the objectives of our seminar? We want to learn about what is co-creation. We want to understand the theory and what are the requirements to apply co-creation in our framework of iCare. We present these two methods, look at the practice, and have outbreak sessions where we will create smaller groups, and then we will try to really apply or use these methods with some ideas or some practical questions and try it out. We have as participants, of course, our project partners, but then also the task force members. As we said, there were like 60 registrations and almost 50 people are now here. And the main aim is also that the project is going on. There will be pilot projects. The task force, the target groups will work together. And of course, this knowledge should be also be able to use it for the future work. So it gets back to another question where I would like to ask you, who are you? Because that is interesting for us to understand. Of course, we have the project partners, and then we have the stakeholders from the four different dimensions, from the business, senior representatives, academia, and administrations. And I would like to answer you these questions, and that gives us a little bit a feedback who is where everybody comes from, as a nice picture. Okay, Doreen, are the answers coming?
Second, yes, they are coming. Just a few seconds, so we give all the chance to answer. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share the results.
Okay, so we have 63% of the people are project partners. We have 5% business stakeholders, 8% from the senior, 5% from academia, and 13% from administration, and 5% are others. So that means a bit more than half of it belongs to the project, and the other ones are from outside. So welcome to everybody who's first time joining the project from the different areas of the quadruple helix that we are focusing on the iCare project. It's very important for us. And we hope that the seminar will be interesting to everybody. Let's move on. We have provided to you last week material that we wanted you to read in advance on co-creation and the business canvas model and the World Cafe. It was a selection of videos, of short articles and further links, so that you have a little bit of preparation for the seminar. We know we live not in a perfect world, and one more question is, did you you receive it? Did you read it, all of it, or only a part? Did you have problem to exit it? Just for us, is good to understand how useful this was, and if you could really work with the material that we've provided. So please, if you could answer this. This is the last question for this introduction. So then you are well aware of the functions of the Zoom platform. Okay, Lorraine, maybe you can show the results.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so we have 6% of the people read all of it, which is great. 71% were reading part of it, and 23% had no time. Okay, well, this is, I think, is a good starting point. The material is still available and can be used as reference. We still have the recording of the session today, and the presentations, of course, will be all available for other partners so that we can all access the knowledge and learn about the topics that we talked today. So how do we proceed today in the seminar? We will have presentations that are given by one person to everybody. They share their screen and they use PowerPoint, and you can listen, of course. And if you have a question, there's the chat function available. I hope you're all aware of the chat function. If you scroll to your bottom or your top, you see there's a box is opening up, and you can write down your question if you have one. We will collect it, and after the presentation, these questions then will be answered. We also have at the end of the presentation a Q&A session where we can discuss directly, and that will be the procedure. The outbreak sessions will also start, or we will have a presentation in the beginning. Then they will last something like 51 hours. We will have smaller groups. Doreen, who is our technical coordinator today, will allocate the participants to the different groups. Basically, it will be this for you. Nothing will change. The system will be the same. We will just be spin-off smaller groups. There will be one host or one moderator for each group that will guide the discussion. And of course, then in the smaller groups, we can have an open discussion. That's the main idea about it. Many people of you already switched on the video. If you can continue this, because then if we talk with each other, it will be nice. We will be taking notes. There will be some documents that we will fill out during the outbreak sessions. And we have a graphic recorder that is present that will take nice pictures of the whole day, and that we have with these nice people and nice graphics. So we will have a nice outcome for this meeting today. Yes, at the end of the outbreak sessions, we will have a presentation of the results. And one important issue is like, please don't worry about your English. I think there's no native speaker here in the group. So we are all more or less amateurs, and in the smaller groups, don't worry, just speak. We talk with each other. This should be not a problem. Yes, and then we have different roles, which is important because there are many functions. It's a bit complex. So we are a group of people that do everything. So I will be the moderator. You already listened to Doreen. which is taking care of all the technical issues and giving support and creating the spin-off, the outbreak sessions. We have two persons, Christian and Martin, that will be giving the thematic presentations. And we then have our moderators for the outbreak sessions. We have very short notice that Ralph, unfortunately, is getting his baby today, so he is in the hospital, he cannot be there. I don't know if we find another volunteer who would like to moderate the session. If not, we will create just 5 outbreak sessions. We will see how this will go on. And yes, at the end, during the next days, we will send you the results. And the outlook is that the next week and the week after, we will have the other 2 trainings on senior engagement and business engagement. They will be also on a Tuesday, the same timing. And I hope that today we have a good first experience, and that we can then also build on maybe some things that we learned today and improve the next seminars, and that everybody gets involved and gets acquired with all these framework conditions.
The presentation mode, I hope you can see it. Thank you for the time giving the opportunity to give you some information about co-creation, innovation practices, and also about the qualitative content analysis that we perform to gain some insights. First of all, think about the classical innovation process. You have some engineers, some other people sitting together, thinking about how to develop new ideas, and you might do that in a, let's say, customer-orientated fashion. Do something for customers, do something for other stakeholders, or you might do it in a, well, let's say, technology manner. You do have some technologies and you want to define new project or products or services or whatever. The problem is that you're not using all resources that might be available to be successful. If you change your mind, and if you do say, well, I don't want to create new products, new services for customers, but together with customers, you simply gain more resources, and those resources do have, they are different. You might have tangible resources, and you also might have, and this is the more important aspect from my point of view, you might have more intangible resources that are not available within your company. So you have more expertise, you have more knowledge, you have more skills that are available to create new ideas and to develop new products and services. So this is just the basic idea of doing co-creation. Do something together with stakeholders that are outside your company, outside the borders of your company, and integrate more resources into the process to well, to actually be more successful together. So if you look at our project, Smart Eye Care, we focus on some specific stakeholders that are able to integrate interesting and important resources like expertise, knowledge, and skills. We focus on the main group, if you want to, the customers or the users of potential products and services, especially elderly people who are able to give us ideas what they need and what products do they like, and what services will be helpful for them during their life or during some problems they face. Another aspect is we also have another stakeholder, which is called companies, because products or services might be developed within one company, but it might also be a good idea to open the process to other companies and to develop something together. So the next stakeholder, which is important for our project, is the public authority, which also is able to add resources and help us to develop products and services. And another stakeholder which is important are researchers. So those are the well, let's say, stakeholders we focus on our project, even though we know that other stakeholders might be integrated, but we still made the focus. And what I call a focal actor is the one coordinating such a project. It's a company or something who has an idea to develop a good product or whatever, and other stakeholders are integrated within that process, and we are concentrating on elderly people, companies, public authorities, and researchers. So from a more theoretical point of view, we need a framework to understand how co-creation, co-production, co-work, whatever you call it, might be framed, might be put into a model if you want to. So what we did is we actually focused on production theory and developed it into a version which is able to deal with the problem of the idea of resource integration. So if you look at production theory, it's relatively simple. It argues you have some resources and you use it during production to produce an output. So this is the actual basic idea of production theory. But once again, we do not need, we do have our own resources, but we want to integrate other resources from other stakeholders, elderly people, and so on. So what we developed is something that is called Unified Framework for Co-Creation, or in a short version, UFCC, which is actually saying we have a focal actor. It is actor 1 on the slide, and we have several other actors. Just put on actor 2, but there might be actor 3, 4, and so on. And they also have inputs. They also have resources which have to be combined in a meaningful manner. This is what I call co-creation, to produce an output that actually is valuable for all parties involved. And if you want to, those are refined resources. There's a focal resource, the idea, the product, or the new service that is developed, but there are some other resources that are also important, especially if you think of doing that process not just once, but doing that process again and again and again. So other resources that are really important are you gain new experiences, you gain new knowledge, and you gain new insights because you are involved in a co-creation project. And this is true for actor 1, but this is also true for all other stakeholders that are involved in that process. So once again, we have something like a feedback loop. You have input, you have resources, and once again, those might be tangible or they might be intangible. Think about again, like knowledge, expertise, and so on. And you integrate those resources into a process which is done together to create some output. Most important output might be an idea or might be a concept for a product for the target group, or might be a service, whatever. But once again, it is important to understand that we also produce other resources called refined resources on the slide, at least, especially experiences, new knowledges, and this for all actors. And those experiences and new resources might help us to be more successful in upcoming co-creation projects and processes. So this is actually the framework we developed just to give you an understanding of what co-creation is, how it works, and it should also give you some ideas of the problems about co-creation, because resource integration is not done by itself. It needs to be managed, it needs to be coordinated by some focal actor. And this is why I'm differentiating between actor 1 and actor 2, 3, and 4, whatever you call it. So using that framework, we used another framework, if you want to gain some insights into our project, into not our project, but our aim of the project, especially innovating products and services for for elderly people. So what we did is we all together created or did some interviews, and those interviews had to be put in within a model. So what we actually did is we used the grounded theory, and within the grounded theory we used an idea or model, if you want to, or a toolbox, whatever, which is called coding paradigm. The interesting thing about this, first of all, you can gain knowledge and represent it in a graphical, meaningful manner. And it also gives you some ideas how to structure your findings in a meaningful manner. So the coding paradigm actually says there's a phenomena. The thing that is interesting, for us is, of course, co-creation in our specific context. So the idea is to say, what are the causes of successful or unsuccessful co-creation? We might get that information from our interviews, from our data we all collected. And the next thing is, the next question is, what are the consequences of successful or even unsuccessful co-creation? And please think again, if you think about our concept of UFCC, those consequences might change the courses within the next project, within the next co-creation process or project, whatever. So there's another thing that needs to be considered, the context and the conditions, because a co-creation project might be different within different companies, within different locations, or within different persons, whatever. So there's also a context which frames the whole process, and we just used our interviews to collected interviews to give an understanding about the context itself. And the next thing is, and this is important for managers, of course, what are the action strategies to use those causes to influence the co-creation process itself, and what are strategies to achieve positive consequences, good product ideas, and so on, and how to reduce negative consequences. So I'd like to give you just a real short idea of the main findings from our perspective, using that framework, and how to develop, let's say, some management processes which help us to co-create together. So the first thing we looked for are causes for good co-creation, or for co-creation that is successful, are the experiences on all sides by all stakeholders. Do you have experience with other co-creation projects? Are they good or are they bad? And this might help you to join within a co-creation process and give some good information. The next thing is more addressing the focal actor, the company, for example, who wants to innovate a new project or a new product or a new service, whatever. You have to be professional. The process itself needs to be steered in a professional way. And this leads to the next point we found out. What you need is a structured process. Of course, you need to be creative. Of course, it's necessary to have good ideas, doing something like work cafe or whatever, but you have to work structured to get good results and to get a co-creation project that is working. The next thing is, what we found out is there might be some communication barriers, and that shows a definitive need for platforms to enable communication between the stakeholders. And what we also need to consider is there might be barriers on the side of the focal actor who might be willing to integrate new ideas from other stakeholders, but it might also be a problem. Think about an engineer doing his job for 20 years and saying, I know how to develop products and services, and somebody is coming from outside, a customer or a researcher or whatever, and giving some ideas, then the engineer has to understand how to integrate and use those new ideas and overcome the idea that he's the only one who knows how to do it. There might also be some resistance from demand side. Think about elderly people. who are looking at a new product and really don't want to change their everyday life processes, which might be changed if you are using a new product. So there might be resistance, and you have to deal with that. The next thing is the interaction itself within such a project needs to be as easy as possible. And the next point addresses all stakeholders. There must be some kind of utility. It must be useful for everybody, or people must they must expect utility from such a project. And all stakeholders needs to have some knowledge about co-creation, how to do it, and what are the possibilities, what is possible to gain. What we also find out that causes are demographic characteristics. There are differences between several countries, how to do it, and there are differences in age and so on. So I'd like to switch to the consequences. Consequences is stakeholders might be more involved because they developed or they co-developed product and services, and this increases their involvement. The next thing is if they join the product of developing a product or a service, well, actually it is more or less logical that they will talk about this product or this service in a positive manner, because simply we want to be consistent. They are part of this project. They did develop this project, and they did develop this product. So it is relatively unlikely that they will talk about this new idea in a negative way, just to be consistent. The next thing is people are typically more satisfied, and they are more loyal to a project or process or whatever if they are part of it, and they might identify themselves with such a product. And the next thing is if you think about, especially if you think about the elderly people, if they use a new product, a new service, they have to change their everyday processes, how to do something. And if you change that, well, there's a risk that you're doing something wrong. So if you are part of that project developing a new product, and if you really understand what this product is doing, your risk is reduced by simply using such a new product. But you might also think of the stakeholders who feel or a feeling of being exploited because they are used as co-workers. So this is a negative consequence we have to deal with. We don't want to exploit any stakeholder, but they might feel so. They might have the impression that they are, well, actually used as some kind of co-worker to reduce costs. And this is not the idea of co-creation as we understand this. The next thing is, in consequence, if you're feeling exploited, you might resist join another co-creation project. So we also have to deal with that. Now think about the context. We found some context actually includes an infinite number of information. So what we did is we focused on the most important based on our interviews we collected together. The first thing is we need to think about the business model of the stakeholders involved, especially about the business model of the focal actor. And we also need to think about the situation of stakeholders involved. Just gave you an example. Think about the state of health of elderly people who might be involved in such a co-creation project. The next thing is we got to think about the economic environment, which is of course different at the moment when it was, let's say, half a year ago or something. And this is also related to the culture within the co-creation is taking place. Are people willing to cooperate, or are there ideas not to cooperate? And that has to be this is part of the frame in which such a project is taking place. And the next thing we got to look is the political environment. Do we have support for co-creation? Don't we have support for co-creation? Is there any money giving for new ideas or whatever? So this is all framing the co-creation project, and we need to manage that. And if you look at some management techniques we might use to enable stakeholders to engage in such a co-creation project, we might use some persuasion techniques. I sent you a video about that. Persuasion does not need manipulation, does not necessarily refer to manipulation or something. This is not what is meant here. It's just persuade people to foster their intentions to join, something like that. We have to think about incentives. Might be financial, but not necessarily. It might be also non-financial incentives. And we got to think about manage the relations between all the stakeholders. We definitely need a platform for co-creation, management, called that collaboration networks, and we also have to reduce negative effects, which are on the slide. This is why I put on compulsion as an aspect to manage that. So what we did in our co-creation handbook using those informations is develop three different perspectives on co-creation to help us understand how to perform a co-creation project in a manner that is successful. So what we put in here is a classical management perspective, telling us what steps are to do to be successful, to achieve a successful outcome. And this is quite related to a cause and effect perspective, which is a typical, well, let's say, idea of scientists and thinking about cause and effect. So we put that in here. And the next thing is we need to think about the actors itself, different companies, elderly people, researchers, and public authority, of course. And we need to think about especially the context to put our management of such a project into a state which enables us to be successful on the market. So this is just an idea, short summary, if you want to, from what we did, and a short summary from a theoretical perspective to give you an idea what is co-creation about and what does that mean if you put it into context with elderly people and into context with smart eye care. If you do have any questions, please use your microphone, and I will try the best to answer your questions.
We continue in the agenda, and we start the co-creation part 1, the value proposition canvas and the business model canvas. We have invited an external speaker, an expert in this matter, Martin from Hungary. Thanks again, Ati, for connecting us. He helped us a lot in preparing the workshop, and so I will hand over to him. He will give first an overview about both methods, and afterwards we will start with our outbreak sessions. Martin, are you online? Are you prepared?
Yeah, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
You
great.
see your screen?
Can you see my screen? Yeah, can you see everything? Yeah?
Now it looks good. Okay.
Okay, great.
So go on.
So hello to everyone. I'm Martin, and I designed or adapted a method for a workshop for you and for your project, which I called Innovation Co-Creation Workshop. So I will now tell you more about how this workshop should look like and what methodologies are actually used in it that you can actually perform it on your place. So workshop is based on a business model canvas and a value proposition canvas and preparation for the project. Basically, usually when you have a workshop like this for the business development, you use mostly business model canvas alone. But I think it is very good to use both of them for you because you really want to utilize the people at the workshop, and mainly the elderly, because elderly are the customers for the innovation. And value proposition canvas show you very nicely what customers want, needs, and would like to do. So both of these canvases, they fit together in a logic that value proposition canvas is feeding to the business model canvas. Then I will later show you exactly how. And yes, so goals and plans for this workshop. I will show you what is its main utility, or what are these two canvases. And later in a breakout session, we will fill out together both canvases, also value proposition and business model canvas. So you will get a feel what you should do, and later then you can translate it to your country or use it in your living labs. So we are going for the main elements. So innovation co-creation workshop. In the material which was sent to you before this meeting, I tried to summarize how this workshop should look like, what should be done in preparation, and what should be done on site. Basically, these are two main parts, and maybe preparation is even more important than implementation on site, because you have to really understand the idea which is proposed by the innovator. You have to really analyze what he wants to do and what are his goals. And then you have to select proper stakeholders that can actually help him during the workshop to reach these goals. So, but if you do this right, it works very nicely. Basically, I adapted this method from a workshop developed by one Horizon 2020 project in Italy, in Emilia-Romagna, and even their not adapted method worked very well. So if you pick the right stakeholders, put them together, they can really help the innovator to move his idea forward or to solve his problem. From the theoretical perspective, this is the method which is called in co-creation tinkering. It means that there is already the idea or a product that needs some help, to move forward in innovation value chain or to understand better customers. The other approach, which is in co-creation, it's basically you have a problem and you need to develop an innovation idea, but there are other methodologies for this. I personally use strategic optional development analysis, and if you are interested in implementing something like this in your country, you can contact me and we can discuss it. As I mentioned, preparation is very, very, very crucial, and but when you are prepared very well, then on-site implementation is quite easy, and just people can freely discuss and fill out the templates. So it has a workshop has a certain structure. It can be workshop can be done. There is just one moderator and let's say 6 attendees, but usually it is better to have more groups because then you can compare the results and ideas of these 2 or more groups. So, and you can come to the more conclusions. Innovator gathers more data and he can analyze it and use it to improve even his business plan or innovation plan. It depends. And the role of the moderator is, of course, to keep notes. And if the discussion isn't starting because it sometimes happens, so he has to stir up the conversation and guide you through the canvases. So this is about the workshop in general that you can, let's say, organize in your country or in your living lab. During these canvases, I will show you what is this canvas and mainly how it can be used on a real example. And I am using the example of the company where I am partner. We are basically a young company, and what we are doing, we are creating personalized probiotics. So it means that we analyze the person's microbiome and create custom-made product for him, which is very exclusive product. So I will show you that analysis which we actually did, and it was done by the more people. It was done by me, by the marketing person, by the person for applied research, from medicinal doctor, from general consumer. So we use this method already for development of this particular business. So we will have a real case, basically, which I will show you. So now I am moving to value proposition canvas. And what is it? it is actually this. We have two parts of the canvas. This right one, it's a customer focused, and the left one is the value which you need to create video innovation for the customer. Because if you create innovation and it doesn't match the needs of the customer, then you create innovation, but that's all. There is no marking, that it fails. So the idea of this canvas is actually to analyze what customers need, and even if my product matches this description. Okay, it is structurally it is a little bit different what normally value proposition canvas is being used for. But what is the main difference is that if I, as a business developer or innovator, are using this canvas, I am making assumptions about what customer needs or wants. But actually, at this kind of workshop with the stakeholders, and if you have even elderly there as a customer, you can test these assumptions even at the workshop. So you can save tremendous amount of time for the innovator, because he can see that this won't work, this will work. Yeah, they can tell him directly. He has a feedback. So this kind of workshop has a big chance to really helping him and move forward with the thinking of what to do. And it is best with the right collection of the stakeholders participating and at the workshop. Also the aim is really to get the feedback from the canvas for the innovator. Okay, so how is it fill out? First, we are always starting with the customer, and we are starting with the section called customer jobs, which means basically what customer is doing and how can we solve his problems, why he is doing it. They can be like functional, or they can be functional jobs like I am going to a restaurant, so I need a food. But they can be also social jobs that, okay, I'm going to the restaurant, but it has to be, let's say, very expensive restaurant that I can show everyone that I am rich enough to show my social status. And also you should think about emotional drivers, because we are emotional beings also in our decision making during the buying process. It's almost purely emotional, not really rational. So in our particular case with the probiotics, it's quite easy, because it is like a drug. So you want to be healthy, you want to help your relatives, so you want to give them the treatment. I will go just very quickly through this because the presentation is quite long. So just give you a brief idea. Then the second part for the customer highest pains is basically what the customer wants to avoid. What causes him discomfort in relation to the product, and you have to understand what really your customers doesn't like. So for our particular case, it is overpaying. It is pretty problematic with the decision making. There are different products, worried about side effects, and so on and so on. There is a lot of kind of issues. Then the third step is gains. Actually, it's what customer want to gain from buying the innovation, or what are his desires. So in our case, it was they want a better health and increased quality of life. And even it can be like, emotional social connection, that they want to share a good story, that I have a personalized product that actually helped me. It is a cutting edge technology you cannot buy anywhere else. So also maybe customer want to have this kind of a story. It is also one of the issues that can be considered in the development of business model canvas, because it is one of the drivers of why people buy things. After you finish the customer segment, you are going to the value segment, which is on the left, and it's in the square. And the first thing which should be filled out are products and services provided by the company or the innovator. In our case, it was the supply of probiotics, but you often should think also the middle steps which you are doing to create your final product or service, because you can then identify that in one of these middle steps can be sold as alone. In our case, for example, it is to do the probiotics, we have to do the analysis, and we can sell the analysis by itself. So it is very good to understand really actually what everything it needs to do to develop products and to identify what can be really then what can be really sold, because it is usually more than one thing from the innovation. Usually there are more. The second part of the value part of the value proposition canvas are pain relievers. What you should do is to try to explain how the innovation is actually reacting to the pains of the customer. So if it is really like easing up this kind of pains, because if you are able to ease up these pains, then your product or service is actually helping the customers and they want to buy it. So it is always important to think about these pains, and if my product innovation is matching it, or if it is not, what can I do to match it? In our case, it is really problematic because it is quite an expensive product. So we understood that we had to change a little bit marketing strategy for this to explain them how it is actually relieves the pain. So this canvas helped us really to understand this. So you have to always try to find how to relieve the pain of the customer. The last part of the value proposition canvas is a gain creator. It is similar to pain relievers. Basically, if the product is creating the gain, yeah, so you always have to match up gains with the gain creators, pain with the pain relievers. If it is done, they create a fit, which is desirable outcome. Then there is high possibility that the product or service can be successful because you are reacting to the needs of your customers. Yeah, for our product, we have already proven that it really helped 80% of the people. So it really improves the health and the quality of life, and it is conceptually something very new, very tailor-made product. So it really creates gain for the people. So for us, this was quite easy part. Okay, what I wanted to mention is one more very important thing. You can do the value proposition canvas in two ways. One way is to do for each customer segment its own value proposition canvas. I advise you that this is usually the good approach, because if it is innovation who has very, very different customer base, they have different needs, different expectations. But in some cases, it can be generalized to the general customer if the customer base is very similar, only with very small, let's say, very small differences between the customers. So in conclusions, in our case, we find out that there is some problematic overlap with pain relievers and pains, so it has to be restructured. And this is also, one of the best results from the value proposition canvas, because then innovator will come up that I have to change this, or if it is interface, he can change the product, or he can change the marketing, or how he actually thinks about it. And this can show through the value proposition canvas, because then he can see what sort of value are customers looking for. So this is what we are going to do also together when we are going to fill out the value proposition canvas, or try for one specific case to find what customers really wants, needs, and how can we get it to them. Then we are going to the business proposition canvas. It's basically one-page document which shows all of the key elements for the business, mainly for the starting business, but it can be also already running. So it has it starts with two parts, which you could see in value proposition canvas, because there is one customer segments, yeah, and there is value propositions, and this is how value proposition canvas fits into the business model canvas. Because if you do this without the value proposition canvas, you have very problematic situation, because it is very hard to estimate the value of the product just out of the blue. You should analyze it properly, because then usually you overestimate the value of the product. This is the most in most cases I met with the innovator, they really overestimated their value proposition, and it was problematic. Then we had to really solve the issue that it doesn't have that big of the value that it should be tinkered. Business model canvas is divided into two parts. This right part is focused on the customers and how they bring revenue to the company, and this left part, these 4 brackets, they are more focused on what should company do and how should it be prepared for with the costs. Again, even in a business model canvas, it was created to make assumptions. They need to be tested, and this is really great. I cannot stress it out in our kind of workshop with co-creation stakeholders, that all of these assumptions can be tested at the place, because you will have you can have the customers there, you can have a manufacturer there, or you can have another person from academia who understands the field, and he can tell you that what should you do, what should be changed, or you can have the person from, let's say, municipalities, and they can tell you their needs or their perspective. So innovator can get really a lot of feedback from different sources and improve his innovation process. This is the core goal of the whole workshop. Again, it is good to have as much relevant data as possible for the innovator, because he can then later analyze it and find out what he should do. And one very important thing is that when you are thinking about business model canvas, it has to be also considered what is the maturity of the innovation. Because, you know, when you have a technology readiness level 1, so basically you have an idea, the work on the workshop will be really focused on how to make this idea really happen into something tangible, like a product or service. But if you are on the technology readiness level 6 and you have already developed the prototype, then it is really different case, because now you have a prototype, you are thinking how to manufacture it, or how to make a service, and how to sell it to the customers. So it is always has to be understood in what maturity of innovation is the innovator currently. And moderator always keeps notes, and also the usually innovator keeps notes, and it's very interesting to to compare them, because 2 angles on the same issue, and usually the notes are very different. So it is just very interesting. Okay, so this is how actually business model canvas looks like with the questions. We can share this with you after the workshop. So if you want to apply it in your countries, in your living labs, you are free to do it. So, and you can see here the questions which are being asked to understand what should be written in each one of these brackets. No, so this is the business model canvas for our probiotic company, and as you can see, you should fill out. There is no really proper way how it should be filled out. If you start from the left or from the right, what I like is this kind of filling out, which is written here. So the first one is customer segment, second one value proposition, third one channels for customer relationships, and the logic is because you should start always from the customers and analyze how you will reach them, and what should you do to persuade them to buy it, basically, the innovation, because that is the point of every business, to really sell the product or its service. So you should always start with the right part, and then come to the left part. What do you actually need? What do you actually need to do, or what kind of activities or what kind of partners do you need to create a value, to come to the customers, and they said, I have this value, give me your money for it. And if you are correct and you bring correct value, they will give you your money, and you will have a good business then, and the innovation can fly and help the people, which is desirable outcome of whole process, basically. So very briefly, because you will see it in an example. So in customer segments, you define what kind of segments you have. They can be like really niche, you know, it depends on this is really product or innovation depending. They can be the mass customer segments or very specific ones. For example, for our probiotic, if you don't have really like health conditions, so because the probiotic is really expensive, it is the issue of the people who actually have money to buy it if they are not really sick. So that is very segmented customer segment, yeah, very specific one. And then the value which you are actually bringing for us, it is improving health. The channels, how you can actually come to the customers. Usually now everyone is talking, just do it online, have a web page, do social media. Usually it is not enough. You should also think about other channels that can be used. For example, it is like actually go to your customer, let's say on some congress or to the association. Also, it depends on which customers you want to really reach. How you will handle your customer relationships, if you will communicate with them really like very frequently, or you will not communicate at all. Yes. What will be the revenue streams? How the innovation product will be sold? Will be sold only one time, or will be some sort of subscription? It depends. Will be fixed price? Will there be barter? Which is the best? This is very important for the innovator to see the opinions of the people. What do they think is the best? Because usually it can be multiple of them, but what will be the best really for the customer? So the approach can be tailor-made for the selling process. Then you move to what actually resources do you need? Do you need to build a factory, or do you need a lot of people for that? Or what kind of expertise will you need to finish your innovation or to sell it? And for our case, it was the key resource is really our exclusive contract with the laboratories who do analysis and who produce the product. So this is really depends, and it is very, very important for the innovator to understand really what key resources will he need. Then from the key resources, you go directly to key activities, and key activities, they are basically really, well, what you need to do to deliver the value. So to understand the main, for example, you need to create a marketing plan, you have to create a manufacturing process. This is also case specific. Then you go to the key partners. This is one of the most, let's say, underappreciated part of the whole canvas, but actually it is one of the most important, because you as innovator should actually understand who are your key partners. And this often, from my experience, this often happens that this is they don't think that, oh, I don't need them that much, but this kind of partner, like let's say key partner for the selling of the product, but I don't need him that much. No. You actually have to understand what, as an innovator, you should need. Or if you don't understand, like, there is a very good innovation co-creation workshop, which will tell you that what should you think about. So this is a very important part. Also, for example, for our case, the very important part was the creation of scientific and medical advisory board, that we can show that we have very, very strong scientific background, that we are not just selling placebo. And without this, it is very problematic to sell it to people. But with it is far easier, because you can sell that we have this strong scientific background. And the last is the cost structure. Basically, yeah, what will be the main cost, if it will be production, marketing, or you will have a lot of people for the salaries. And there should be also point out one thing: if it is business driven, business value driven, or it is not value driven, but the cost driven. Yeah, I will be ending presentation. Yeah, in conclusions, it is always really important to focus on new perspectives and to test the assumptions. And at the end, you should compare the results with the expectations and goals. So this is for the business model canvas. Now I will show you the practical example that we will do for the both canvases. It is about the case study. It's a hypothetical company, panic button. This panic button is on the bracelet, and it basically calls help if you fall or you have some sort of problem with the heart, because it collects also your data from your cardiac rhythm and bodily functions. So this is what we are going to analyze in our case studies. And the goals of these hypothetical innovators is really to understand the customer segments for the marketing, how to persuade them to buy it, and help with understanding of administrative processes with the selling, or how to actually produce it, and so on. It will improve his business plan. So this is for now all for me. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Martin.
I will put all participants in breakout sessions. Each group gets a trainer that guides you through the session, and the first session will be about the value proposition canvas, and all other informations you receive within the breakout sessions. So enjoy.
We had, Doreen, we had 5 groups now, yes? Was it correct?
Yes, we had 5 groups.
Okay, good.
So maybe you can announce one group moderator to present.
I will start presenting the results of our document that we filled in, and then I would ask the other 4. We have 15 minutes, so we'll make it not too long, but just to show you. I will share my screen. Okay, that's what we did. So we started by discussing actually about real use of panic buttons in several of the partner regions, which were like in Prague and in Austrian Graz. They had experience with panic buttons, and it was interesting to initiate the discussion. They were used. There were 2 sorts of panic buttons in Prague. The one used in the care center, and the other one used for people at home. Actually, they were given to them by these organizations, a few hundred pieces. And then we also discussed like the old people. Most of them they don't want it, but their children, they give it to them. So like important for marketing is like you want your parents to be safe, just direct it to the people who have older parents. But then also the care centers, of course, are important because they buy it and they offer it in the case of their services to the old people. We discussed, of course, the gains, which is security, to be safe and call emergency, but also the health aspect is very important. And most of the time we discussed about the pains and the pain relievers. For instance, that people forget about it in case of emergency. There are false alarm, or they use it by mistake. Old people, they are afraid to be controlled. And some people are also, they don't like to use it because it shows they are old and they need help. And also many old people, they don't have a mobile, or they might have a problem with an app, which is complicated. So then we discussed what could be pain relievers. We need to have this automatic alert that they don't need to think about it, and they are also protected if they forget it. We need to have a kind of net or like security net if there's a false alarm, that is the impact is not too big, like maybe just a short phone call. We want to make the bracelet more sexy, like an Apple Watch, that it's not a stigma, like that it shows like you are like a modern old people. The app must be adapted to the needs of the old people. There must be automated processes. And finally, we discussed there's the need for a facilitator that shows the function and gives personal support. And in the case of Prague, for instance, the caregiver had a very central function to check if the old people, they need it, and then they recommend the technology. So possibly the marketing should be also focused on the caregivers. And then the game creators, yeah, it's not selling it only as a panic button, but as a health bracelet. And that also shows like the steps, the calories burning. So like add more positive image to this panic button. That's what we were able to discuss, and thanks to all the participants in my group. So I'm stopping it now. Who wants to be next? Ati, did you write down something you want to show?
Yeah, we just started. I don't see the sense in like sharing the first section. I would just urge this group to move on to the next section.
Okay, good. Any special ideas to add on the arguments I provided? Did you go to the similar direction? Did you had some other input discussion round?
Yeah, we just started discussion, so I would say nothing to add.
Okay, Martin, you are the professional about this. How did you progress? First of all, how did you like our results, and what did you produce? Okay.
No.
You already finished everything, so this is the final result, yeah? Okay, go on. Did you switch on your, I don't hear you.
Martin?
Martin? We can't hear you, Martin.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I unmuted.
Now it's better.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, we went straight for the template. I just proposed the situation, hypothetical one. And yeah, there were some very interesting thoughts about it. It's interesting that there are some clear perspectives that people want. You know, they want to, of course, not being dead and not being injured, but there are a lot of, let's say, these social or emotional needs, like they don't want to be a burden for their family, or they have a technological anxiety. They don't want to use this kind of new issues. How can you solve it? You have to make it very easy. So so basically, most of these points are related to the feeling of the people and how you can respond to this feeling. This what was quite interesting for me, and well, that was on the right part of the value proposition canvas. So so you can see that there is from our perspective, it's very important for the people. You know, they can stay at home or go somewhere without people, for example, to the forest, and not being afraid that something bad can happen. So it gives also some feeling of independence. So we are again with the feelings. And what was very interesting with the products, the services, was proposed that, okay, you just cannot produce based on the software, but really the service should be also very, very broad support for the people, not like setting up the device, explaining, and this kind of issues. That is a key for the selling of a product. Yeah, it has to be easy to use, you know, to avoid this technology anxiety, and it would be really good also to share the good practices of other users. And from the game creators, as you can see, basically the main, what does it produce? It can produce this feeling of independence, and it can really help saving the life, which is the most important one, of course, but we cannot really forget about these emotional ones. This is actually very nice added value of the product, that it can show to the older people that they are not that old, let's say, that they are more independent and they can be more, you know, connected to the society, so they don't decline on their mental health. So
okay, thanks a lot, Martin. Looks perfect. So but we still had two more groups that I would like to ask. Christian, how was your discussion? Maybe you don't need to repeat all arguments that we already mentioned, but maybe you had something that we have still not mentioned.
Okay, let me share my screen. Of course, we have some aspects that were mentioned by the other groups, but we also had some, from my point of view, special things to add. First of all, I had the feeling that he had a problem in quotation marks, because if you look at our group, we did not have any potential customers in there. So what we had to do is to simulate to be a customer, or to develop ideas for the customers and not with the customers, which is one of the ideas of co-creation. So that was one of our findings, saying it's a bit hard to do that without actual customers. The next thing is we looked at customer jobs, and we had a problem to define customer itself, because you might say older people are customers, they might also be users, whatever you call them, but what about the families? Are they customers as well, or are they users, because they are informed if something happens? And then there are a lot of service providers involved, which are informed and have to do something if a panic button is pressed. So the process itself is a bit, it's relatively complex, and this is why we call this customer jobs a chain of processes. And it's a question of perspective if you're looking at the elderly people itself, family, or the service providers. So it's not quite clear who is the customer and who is the user. If you look at the pains, we have similar ideas. We saw that there might be resistance to use such a product. We have found out that there's a lot of uncertainty involved in using something like that. We found out that the technology expertise might be different, and that designing such a project, such a product or solution, if you want to, must involve elderly people, because they have different expertise for technologies and so on. We find some gains which is more or less identical to what the other groups did identify. We asked ourselves, if you look at the product side, at the left side of the slide, we asked ourselves, maybe it's a good idea to find a solution which is, we called it natural integration. I do not know if that is a good idea, but the idea is to say this button should be something intangible or something like that. It shouldn't communicate you are old and you need help, because that might also be connected with a negative image as a person being old, needing help. So it might be a good idea to develop a button which is intangible. But all the other aspects are more or less the same, and which to the aspects the other groups showed.
Okay, thanks, Christian. So then, last but not least, Barbara, how was your discussion? Please switch on your
microphone. So first of all, thanks to leave me after Martin and Christian. So thank you very much after the expert. So we think to have more or less touched the same argument of the previous one, but about the customers, we focus on elderly. We identify also family and physicians, for example, but probably we think that for they, a different canvas can be helpful, because are different the pains and the gains they want to reach, and also the marketplaces can be different and the channel of communication. So we identify these differences, and we focus on elderly. Just to put some words about the differences, of course, living alone, living independent is the gain they want to reach, and the pain is to go to hospital for emergency for the elderly, but also to pay too much for the call. So how is managed if I have to have an insurance, or if they call to the hospital directly? How is this the process is one of the possible pains. Regarding the product and the services, we identified that the guarantee of the secular system, it's an added value, but also the possibility to have a customer service and info point in order to receive direct information if there are something that don't goes properly in on the bracelet. For example, if you have a problem in recharging, to have a physical person to be contacted for support. About the pain relievers, the differences here is to avoid the limitation distance from home. Some of the systems are connected to the network of your home, the wireless, need wireless connection. If this product have something, some software installed, some, storing process, to support people to go really distant from a network connection is a good added value. And also to have the possibilities to have information about how it works and that it works. To avoid to be scared about the false alarm, to have a demonstration or to have a network of people that use it and can prove that you don't have a false alarm. And for the game creators, of course, the autonomy, the security, and commonly from the description of the customer to the pains, to the gains, and the game creator is the family, because you want to avoid to border relatives as a pain to border level, to call them for any trouble you have. Again, is to have the relatives less worried about your independence, about possible emergency during the night or when you are on vacation and so on. And also to provide the possibility, if the elderly wants, to leave them to monitor your data. That is more or less the differences of our discussion with the respective previous.
Thanks a lot, Barbara. I'm happy that Italian perspectives focus on the family.
It was not mine, honestly, not this one, it's the group.
Good, good. Okay, so I see we all had lively debates and we produced a lot of content using the forms. I liked the discussion in my group. I hope you had similar feelings. We all deserve a break now.
I think we should start with the business model canvas. Martin already introduced you to the business model canvas, and I'm going to send you to the sessions that are the same sessions with the same participants that you already took part in.
Yes.
And there you will work on the business model canvas with a panic button to learn how the process is going on, and maybe how you can transfer it to a practical approach in your context.
Hello everybody, welcome back. We're still 38 people. Wow. Nobody escaped from the exercise. Okay, now we had a little bit more time. The template was also a bit more complicated, I found, but the discussion was good in our round. I think we want to present, give the floor to the different tables, and Barbara, she complained to be the last one, and maybe I would give her the floor to present as a first. Barbara, are you there? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, come on, please.
Okay, let me show what we did. It was an exercise really heavy, more or less, because we identified many points since the beginning. For example, so we identified the customers, but we have to put some a priori condition that this is not a medical device. And this avoids us to have a clinician as customers directly. So, and also to have insurance as direct customers. That is the first part of the discussions. I'm trying to follow the order of the discussion. The value proposition is almost something that we already identified in the previous section. we increase a little bit. For example, mobility, autonomy, security, okay, but a support to increase the daily activity, because if you perceive that you are more monitored, you try to do more because you perceive less risks. And also a reduction of the barrier for socialization, because if you are scared to go outside for some reason, for healthy reasons, if you know that you are controlled, you have the possibility to call emergency in any moment, anywhere, you reduce these aspects. So the monitoring barrier, not all the barriers of socialization, of course, but this is the mainly. The usability is not a value proposition. It's something that has to be considered in the design, because all of these are value if the device is designed correctly for our elderly people. So this is another condition we discover during the discussion. So not a medical device, and must be correctly designed. About the channel of communication, so we identify a lot of them, but just to focus of this aspect, some of the channels are indirect, like the advisory and through television, through newspaper and so on. Other are more direct, like talking with your family doctor or with the caregivers or with other elderly that use it. And we envisage that needs to have a combination. So even if you don't want to use all of them, you have to combine direct and indirect. The example was you see on the TV the presentation of the products, but you need to talk with someone if it's trustable, do you think I need it, and so on. So this is the combination, it's the requirement. About the customer relationship, it's important to put the basis for a trust relationship between the customers and the producers. So, and we have to provide customer services. So a support, here is a support for technical problem on difficulties in using, even if it's a bracelet, sometimes happens that they don't put correctly the sensor for example, for recording the heart rate. And this is one. We talk about the revenue streams just shortly, because it's really complicated to analyze all the possibility. And we focus about two aspects. If you buy only, if you sell only the product, you have to decide what's happened if you push the button. Because if you push the button, you call directly the emergencies. You have to compare this your country, because the health management system is different and sometimes it's costly, and you must have an insurance and so on. So you have to put the decision of what's happening with your button in combination with the nation you are going to buy, or if you prefer to call the family. That is something that we recognize, that we would like to be more independent, to be more, to leave our family less stressed about to take care of us. If you call the family, we miss a little bit. So, and the second position is the second possibility is the bodyguard function. So if you put the button, you can talk with a caregiver that support you in understood which is the situation, and can call the emergency only if it's necessary, or suggest you what to do. And in this case, you have to decide, is the monthly rate, annual rate, is just an interaction, or it's an expert that you are calling with basic level or more high level. Health provider, it's something that can support you, because you can have some kind of contract with, for example, some houses that provide you, that would like to have this system for the hospital, or insurance that can be another partner for supporting you in emergency care. So you can have these partners and to have revenue also from these channels. And for the last three, key resources, key partners, and key activities. Also, in this case, we have some discussions. For example, so of course, we have the resources are the components of the bracelet, the software is the app you are going to be, you have to maintain also the information, the experts that support you in taking the decision of how to implement all the steps that can be support on medical aspects in design, acceptability of technology and so on. And the relationship with the customer. If you have a channel of relationship with the customer, this is a resource. Otherwise, it's something that you cannot consider. So this is a connection between this aspect and this. Partners are the producers of the components, and if you are envisaging the bodyguard services that is outsources, this is a partner. Depends. Sorry, I forgot the relationship with the customers is the call center, more or less, and it's something that probably, since it supports users on technical aspect, is something that you have inside. The key activities, and now here we have, you see that we are reducing the list because the time is rushing. So is the key activities produce the product and test is activities, of course. The customer services, because we decided to have this inside the company, is an activity, and the market. According to this, we have the cost structure, the cost to making the product, to sell the product, for the marketing activity, and the staff for customer services. This is more or less a very quick overview of what we did.
Okay, thanks a lot, Barbara. Maybe now one question to you and also to the others. We all collected now a lot of good feedback on our hypothetical course, but what was your experience using the template, the one in the first and the second session? What was good? What was difficult? In general, a feedback now using this business canvas model. What do you think?
Okay, I didn't ask to the participants, but we have 2 persons that already use that, and the second one is the most know, but I think that we were more safe, more comfortable, even if we start with difficulties, the previous one. With
and second thing, I think if I could say the time, it was a little bit like short for truly do like properly a canvas model each point. So I think next time, if we want to do the canvas, we need more time. It's short.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
But having the first one more simple, if we can say, simplify the work of this one. Because we already talked about the product, we already talked about which are the people involved. So this is supported the discussion of this one. Otherwise, in 1 hour, it was impossible to fill at least all the canvas. So the order support us in doing this exercise.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's move on to the next group. Is Ati still there? He shared the document.
No, he had to leave. I asked him to announce someone of his group who can present. But I don't know if he did it.
It's somebody from
Ati's group. Yes, it's Bernhard, Joseph, Patrick, Peter.
Yeah, but I haven't received the PowerPoint in which
I can share the screen. He wrote a link in the chat, and I already opened it. So Patrick, if you can present, I can share my screen.
Okay, but Patrick, as I mentioned before, maybe use 50% of your time presenting the results, and then 50% maybe giving a feedback, like how you like the model, how it was applied, what was good, what was bad.
I think Peter or Joseph would be more suitable for this task, if you don't mind.
Who?
Totally okay. Send Joseph.
We don't hear anything.
maybe Bernard.
Just a second.
We have very, very slow. We hear nothing.
Otherwise, we take in as a group if there are technical difficulties.
Let's move to the next. Christian, can you continue, please?
Sure. Just a second to. I can share my screen because it's already shared.
Elaine, can you stop the sharing of your screen? No.
So, okay, trying it again. Yeah. So here we go. Put it on the side. So we produced definitely some similarities to the first group. Nevertheless, there are a few different aspects that we found. But before I start with our conclusions or our results, whatever, it is important to note that we work with some assumptions. The first assumption was that customers and users are actually the same. So this might not be realistic because we easily find situations where customers and users are not the same, but we use that assumption to make the process a bit easier. And we also looked at if we want to fantasy market without concrete context like a country or concrete a specific insurance system. So we just ignored that aspect to use those 60 minutes as good as possible. And we defined our customer segments. People are 70 years or older, and they have some health conditions. An example would be heart stroke or something like that. Those people typically live alone, or as another customer segment, they are active elderly people and do need some assurance while being active. Customer relationships was quite difficult for us to identify because we said we need a long-time customer relationship, but how to do that? The problem is that our solution, product or service, whatever, is a solution that people do not want to use. They don't want to press that button only in an emergency case. So this is leaving us with a problem how to establish a long-time relationship. And some ideas where, well, we are trying to establish a personalized contact via phone calls or something like that. We are asking for feedback in a regular basis, or we are doing something like test alarms, and we are trying to build a relationship to the family of the product user or product customer. Channels is a bit difficult because the question arises: is it a distribution channel or is it a communication channel? We use both terms, distribution and communication channel, to fit in that box channel. Was that okay? We need a link to a target group, home care organizations, healthcare providers, doctors, and the families might be examples. Or we might address communities for elderly people, friends or whatever. And we need instruments that are based on classical promotion because elderly people might not use the internet as much as younger people. But if the customer is not the user, if the customer is, for example, the son or the daughter, then the internet might be a good communication channel and a good distribution channel for our products. If you look at value propositions, they are more or less the same than, of course, in our first breakout session. It is something like feeling safe, or it might be life-saving in a concrete condition. And it's also convenient to use such a product in an emergency case, and it might just as the main value proposition, it might have our customers to be heavier and have a longer life. If we address doctors, then the value proposition would also exist. Data that is collected and helping to to make a better service for their customers. So key activities would be addressing primary healthcare providers. Doctors might be an example. And we also need to provide evidence for our value proposition to ensure that what we are talking about is really happening if an emergency case happens. And we need to enable main processes, and we need to ensure that the product itself has a design that is acceptable for the customer segments. Key resources would be our technologies, our partnerships with local service providers, and human resources. Building, maintaining relationships to partners, customers would be a typical job for those key resources. Key partners would be local service providers, Red Cross is an example, hardware providers, providers for technical infrastructure. We might need some software or IT consultants. We need a link to a target group. A healthcare provider would be an acceptable way to do that. We need to develop partnerships with experienced healthcare providers as a testimonial or something like that. Then we looked at our cost structure and said, okay, the product development itself is expensive. We need to conduct studies for our key activities. We have to meet legal requirements. We need external partners, employees, of course. We need to launch the product and to market it in a continuous way. We need infrastructure, IT, but office and so on. We need to improve our product in a continuous fashion. We need updates for our software. We need some kind of troubleshooting. But on the other side, revenue streams might be because we are selling our product for a one-time fee or for a monthly fee or some combination of that idea. We might also ask for gift cards, or we might ask doctors to pay for it. Another instrument would be healthcare companies, health insurance companies, and we might also think about upselling instruments by increasing the features that our product is able or our service is able to deliver. So Andreas, you also asked, was it difficult to fill in or to use that business model canvas for what we're interested in, co-creation of innovations? If you look at it, you see that it is not really easy to identify the box where to put in information. You might argue that a key partner is also a key resource. You might also argue that a customer relationship is a key resource, and so on. Meaning it is not really easy to identify the correct box where to put in some information.
Okay, good. Yeah, certainly we are all newcomers somehow to this business canvas model, and what we experienced in our group was it promoted a lot the discussion, what I liked, and brought different perspective to our topic, and that was good. I'm not going to look at all the results that we presented because it's pretty much similar. We also looked at the nurses who are the key, maybe also social events prepared by the NGOs, informal meetings, making pilot projects, looking at elderly organizations using their newsletters. Showrooms could also be good, was also presented. Exhibition fairs. We didn't really look at key resources, cost structures, because there was not so much time. And in the end, we realized it's also important not to only to have this bracelet as waiting for negative emergency situations, but it should also somehow communicate positive feedback or more communication, which was especially difficult under Corona. So that is an important issue maybe that could be covered. And in the end, we had a a general discussion that, I mean, all these wearables are like all technologies. People don't want to wear it. Other technologies might be the future, maybe some implanted chips. Let's see where the future will take us. So yeah, that was our experience. We couldn't answer some questions like about finance because not all people were involved in these processes. But for the startup, it was a good exercise from my point of view. So now, last but not least, I would like to invite Martin to share his screen and maybe give his feedback, also like being experienced in using the model several times. How was your experience? What worked well? Of course, you said you need a lot of good preparation, professional moderation. What is your opinion? Martin, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. I can share my screen. Yeah, but basically most what we did was already discussed. It's very similar. I would just point out maybe that when you start with the customer segments, that for example, value proposition, relevance of value proposition is 1 point from value proposition are relevant only from specific customer segments. So for example, when I am an elderly person, I want to just improve my health. But if a customer is an insurance company, they want to, for example, save money. So the value should be always connected with the customer segment. That's why it was also in value proposition canvas. I think the main problem we did this online because we had to, but it is very different experience when you do it in person. There was one note that we didn't have enough time. Yeah, well, I agree. Usually this kind of workshop, you do it for the half day, and you have for business model canvas with the discussion, everything for about 2 hours. Yeah, so you have more time. But if you do it in 2 hours in online, that it would be very difficult. Yeah, it's quite a long time. But if you do it on site, then yeah, definitely the 2 hours. It's like okay time. What's problematic, I think, for everyone is that we were just a random collection of people. If you do it with the innovator and with the setup stakeholders, they are all from the background. They understand it. They grasp the complex concept of the product far quicker, and they have their experience. They can apply it into the canvas. So it's far easier in that way. Well, in this workshop, we wanted mainly to demonstrate the methodology itself. And one other thing was that sometimes you don't know where you should place your answer, if it is to key partners or somewhere else. Well, I would see this business model canvas more as a structure or a tool for discussion or brainstorming. So it sometimes doesn't matter if you put here or there, but it should be there, then it can be analyzed. That is the more important thing, to give as much as relevant data for the innovator so he can then reflect on it. That's very important. And that's the key message, to give as much as feedback for the innovator as possible. And that should be all the goal of the workshop. From my perspective, with my group, it worked well. Thank you to all in my group. And yeah, that's what I wanted to tell. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So yes, we all knew in the beginning that we have the restrictions of working online together on a topic. We had our groups, but of course we could not put people of all positions with relevant knowledge to this group. We had little time, but I think it was a good exercise to approach this model, to start working with it. And I think in the future it's always good to have a good preparation, a good moderator that has tested this method several times, and then just use it.
Yeah, if I can just add that if anyone has more questions about it, you can ask me. I am happy to answer. If you are interested in other methodologies for co-creation, I'm happy to answer also this. So feel free to write me if you, for example, want also these free template canvases that can be printed for the whole wall or everything, I can send it to you. It's no problem. Just write me. I'm open always to communicate.
Okay. So yeah, if I look at the agenda, we are coming to an end. I think it was a very intensive day. I mean, working online is also exhausting, but we are happy that at least the platform, the communication, the sharing the screen was working so far. Also the outbreak sessions, the discussion was going well. What we will do after the seminar, we will prepare all the results and share it with you. And we will also send you a kind of evaluation questionnaire where we will ask you, how did you like it? Because what would you like to improve? What we should do better for the next meeting, which will actually take place in 1 week time. We will have a little different approach this time, which is more focused on short presentations of practical experiences from the Living Lab in Belgium, and on different topics. You will receive the agenda very soon, and then we go back into outbreak sessions and we will discuss. We have defined several questions where we will just discuss. I think it will be interesting. And we are also discussing with Barbara about the business engagement topic. Also there we have identified a few topics. And yeah, we are looking forward to the next meeting. I hope you all liked today's event. We are 33 participants still. A few have already left because of other appointments. Thanks to everybody, to all the presenters, to Doreen, to all the participants in the outbreak sessions. And yes, I wish you a relaxing afternoon, good weather, and then read the next documents that we will provide to you in the next days. We'll be well prepared for the next meeting. And yes, stay healthy. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice week.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.